Let me welcome everyone to the May Stockton Astronomical Society General Meeting. Looking forward to a good program tonight. Good to have you all here in person and on Zoom. Kind of a smaller crowd, but I think that's great because we've got a lot of demonstration that Eric's going to do for us. After his demonstration, I've got just a few announcements and that'll wrap it up. So let me go ahead and introduce our speaker tonight. You all know Eric Holland. Eric's a graduate of UC Davis with a degree in, guess what? Computer engineering. Yeah. He currently works in information services as a system administrator. His main duties pertain to Oracle, CNC, and DBA work. You're not going to present on that tonight. Good.
No.
Okay. His main duties, Eric's became serious about astronomy in college and has been active as an amateur astronomer ever since, going on for over 22 years. So Eric's a great addition to the club. He's always got something new and exciting he's doing and working on, some new gizmo or gadget. So we're going to see his latest tonight. So Eric, I'll turn it over to you and give Eric a round of applause.
Hello, everybody in Zoom and everybody here in the room. So I'm going to be juggling a lot of things here, switching from devices, and so bear with me. Let me go ahead and share a little bit of slides here. Let me switch over to that. And I've got multiple screens to deal with here, and I can barely read the one over there.
Well, you're the computer scientist, so. You bought it?
Oh, share screen. All right, try the screen here. So thanks, Tim. As you said, I didn't do share. Let me maximize this so people can see everybody in the room here. That's in Zoom. I'm gonna switch things up today and kind of use this screen over here. Let me. Okay, can anybody in the Zoom let me know if you're seeing the intro to astrophotography slide?
Yeah, I see the slide, okay.
Okay, very good. That's good. So this talk is going to be, as it says, an intro to astrophotography. I'm going to be specifically talking about two devices that are relatively new on the market that are called the Dwarf 2 and the C-Star S50. The Dwarf 2 is from a company called Dwarf Lab. The Dwarf 2 is from a Dwarf Lab, and the C-Star S50 is from a company called ZWO. And this is kind of the agenda for tonight. It's going to be sort of an informal talk. I'm going to try and do some walkthroughs of some different processes that I do with these devices. So I'm going to do an intro to these smart scopes. They're called smart scopes. Walk through the features of them, pros and cons. Walk through how the apps look and how to do some imaging, and also cover some important concepts along the way, and also try to finally walk through some post-processing of images. Okay, so on the next slide here, the Dwarf 2 and the C-Star S50, as I said, they're smart scopes. I feel that they are incredible tools for those that are just entering astrophotography. They are making the process simpler than it's ever been, in my opinion. And and many aspects of astrophotography have been expensive, time-consuming, difficult to learn, and this has created frustration among the astrophotography community. In the end, many who just try to do it give up because it can have a steep learning curve. So these smart scopes are helping to change that. So here's the first one. It's called the Dwarf 2. And for those that are in the room, I also have them set up over here, and I'll be connecting to them with my iPad a little bit later. It's really, these scopes are really small, so they're really portable. This one has 2 wide field and telephoto cameras on them. And it also has some filter adapter. This filter adapter is magnetic that attaches right to the front. Whoops, right to the front here. And you can purchase it in a couple different packages. You can get it with some neutral density solar filters. It comes with a million as the marking on them for how dark they are. This one has this little indicator light on the side, power light. It operates by a USB-C port to charge it. It's got a replaceable battery, a nice little micro SD memory card slot to hold your images. It's got a 1/4-20 screw hole to mount to a tripod. As I said, it has telephoto wide angle, and this is kind of a picture showing the overall what's normally in the deluxe package. Comes with that little mini tripod, carry case, and it's really a nifty little device. Here's the other one. This is called the C-Star S50. Comes with a little tiny carbon fiber tripod. Here's a closer image of it from the front. It also comes with this solar filter. It just pops right on the front. It's not glass, it's a film like you'd get from like Thousand Oaks that we just used at the past eclipse. Here's another image of the tripod. So let me talk about the features here for a brief moment. Got the Dwarf 2 on the left, C-Star 50 on the right. They're inexpensive, in my opinion. The Dwarf is $459 to $595, depending on the package that you order. You can order it without all the little accessories that it comes with. The C-Star S50 is $499. And so to kind of ballpark the price here, it is roughly around the same price as your basic like 6-inch Dob from Orion, Apertura, whoever. So it's a nice little introductory scope. These are all-in-one options. So it is basically a scope, a mount, and the camera all wrapped into one little device. And what's really great about that is you can power all those things with just like one power cable to an external power bank if you choose to. But they do have internal batteries that you can swap in and out and replace and charge, so you can basically image all night long, especially with I think on the batteries themselves, it probably lasts about 3 to 4 hours. With the external battery power bank, they're kind of image all night long. So the Dwarf 2 is a small aperture. It's only 24 millimeters, has 100 millimeter focal length. It's an f4.2. It's got about 3 degrees field of view and an 8 megapixel camera sensor in it. The C-Star S50 is 50 millimeter aperture, 250 millimeter focal length at f5. It has a small field of view at 1.29 degrees, and it's only 2.1 megapixels, but it actually works quite well. They both have some internal dew heating, so your optics don't fog up. The Dwarf 2 has an internal infrared filter. The C-Star S50 has an internal UV/infrared filter. It also has an internal dark filter and a dual. I have O2 there, but I might be mistaken. It might be an O3. O3 and hydrogen alpha filter. But the Dwarf 2, you can get it with the option where it comes with two external neutral density eyepieces. Yeah, one minute, someone is speaking here. It also comes with a UHC filter, which stands for ultra high contrast. That type of a filter is really good on nebulas, for example. Not so much on galaxies, but you can try. The C-Star S50, like I said, has a sun filter. It's just film-based, like the Thousand Oaks. The two batteries there. You got the Dwarf 2 is 5,600 milliamp hours. The C-Star S50 is 6,000. The Dwarf 2, you can insert memory cards into it. It comes with a 64 gigabyte, but I'm personally using 512 gigabytes. So I have a lot of space, and if I run out, I can add additional memory cards. The C-Star S50 doesn't have that option. It has an internal EEC memory at 50 gigabytes, and that's all you get. So that's a little bit of a downside, in my opinion. But so far, it hasn't been a problem. I think you'd run into a problem if you're doing a lot of video with that device. So they have automatic tracking, go-to, live stacking. We got built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. And I'm listing the sensors that are in the devices. They're both from Sony. The pros, so the Dwarf 2, C-Star, they have similar pros, similar cons. There's some slight differences. The Dwarf 2 and C-Star S50, you can both control them from a smartphone or tablet. You don't need to use a computer while you're imaging. You might want to use a computer when you're doing some post-processing, but that's up to you. They both have an object catalog, a database in the app to search for objects. Dwarf 2 has a magnetic clip-on that we mentioned, which is really handy. Came in real handy when we at the Eclipse, because you can just have the neutral density filter on it and then magnetically just pull that magnetic clip right off the front face. You can also purchase a 1 1/4 inch to 2 inch filter adapter. I have one right here in the room where people can see. So if you do have your own 2 inch filters, you could slap it right on the front of the Dwarf. So it's not so easy with the C-Star S50 because they don't have any threads on the front. But there are people making like 3D printed adapters to put on the front. So it is possible. Both of them, you can replace the battery. The C-Star S50 is a little more difficult. It's on the very bottom of the unit, and you gotta like unscrew it, I think, to get inside. The Dwarf 2 just comes right off the back door and slides in and out really easily. Weight wise, the Dwarf 2, it's smaller, weighs less. It's only 2.6 pounds. The C-Star S50 is 5.5 pounds. Overall, I have the sizes there. I would kind of judge the size of the Dwarf 2 to be, I don't know, a little bit bigger than like the body of a DSLR camera. The C-Star S50 is about the size of, I don't know, maybe a large, like 200 count tissue box. About that. So you can use iOS and Android devices to control these. And they also do plate solving so that they know where to go from object to object and track. And it's really great. I haven't had any problems with them centering the object immediately. You know, like an old tracking mount, you know, like from Meade or something, where you have the old hand controller. To me, you know, those, even though they're go-to and track, it doesn't like center it always for you immediately. Sometimes it's out of the field of view, and you have to slew the scope to find the object and center it up yourself a little bit. But these are it's amazing. They just go right to it.
So they're plate solving, so there's no polar alignment, there's no alt azimuth adjustments. You just set it down and it looks and finds its location in the sky on its own.
That is correct.
Wow. It's amazing.
So here's some of the cons. Dwarf 2, it actually has a pretty good size sensor. It's a 380 by 480. I'm sorry, 3,840 by 2160. And it's oriented in a landscape fashion. The C-Star S50, it's only 1920 by 1080. And for whatever ridiculous reason, they've mounted it in a portrait fashion, which I don't like. But it still works out pretty well. So what that kind of means is that they're both designed to work in all as configuration. So they are one subjected to field rotation. And that really does come into play when for the C-Star S50 when it is portrait. You know, you have a lot of wide field objects. Yeah.
Can you do multiple exposure stack and then let it de-rotate?
It will automatically de-rotate when it does its live stacking.
Okay.
The C-Star S50, though, because it's in portrait, it is a kind of a problem, but they're supposed to be introducing like a mosaic mode. So that is a way to get around that problem.
So it's not really good.
It's not really a big deal. But both, I actually should have listed this. They both, you can't rotate the sensor. So like a DSLR camera or a dedicated astrophotography camera, you can rotate the camera to frame the subject within the field. You can't do that with these.
But like in software, when you're stacking images, it will de-rotate them so that they align. So this feature isn't part of this setup.
You have the ability to do live stacking and it will de-rotate it for you, but you can also choose the option to stack them manually with the software of your choice, and it will de-rotate it. That's correct.
So it really isn't the problem.
Not with stacking. Well, what I'm saying is, let's use the veil as an example. Really big, you're only going to get part of it. But even if you could get it, but you couldn't rotate the sensor to frame it the way that you want. It's always going to be portrait, no matter what. Up and down vertical, you can't rotate the field of view to try and get it in the field as it might rotate throughout the night.
Right, I get that, but I'm talking about sidereal derotation. Where as you're taking the picture.
It won't.
As the objects are rotating, won't it take pictures, rotate, and then de-rotate them to stack them?
It'll de-rotate them in the software.
Yeah.
Yes.
You'll
Yeah. I'll show you some images later. We'll see what I'm talking about. So they come with small tripods and I don't really use them in that fashion. In the room here, I do have them set up on their default tripods, but I tend to use a much larger, more stable tripod. But not really because they're not stable, but where I'm at, I need them to be vertically higher than just sitting on the ground to get so that they can look over trees and buildings and whatnot. I would say that both of these are not good at imaging planets. They appear really small and tiny on the field, in the sensor, and they're not good for that purpose. So keep that in mind. These are mainly used for deep sky astrophotography. Couple other problems that I'll show you in a bit. You need to make sure that they're level. The C-Star S50 has a compass and leveling feature in it, which while it works, it's difficult. And so I use can you guys see me? Yeah, if you are see me in zoom in, I've got this little device here that has adjusters on it that you can mount on the tripod, head of the tripod, and level it up. So you don't have to worry about adjusting the tripod legs. But so I'll use this on all the different on the different devices. It has issues with the built-in integration intervals. So the Dwarf 2, the maximum duration that you can have it exposed is for 15 seconds only. But you can image however many frames you want, up to like 999 frames. You can adjust that level below 15 if you want. The C-Star S50 though, it only has the option of 10 seconds, 20 seconds, and 30 seconds. And it doesn't really have any way to adjust it in between those levels. So I think that's kind of a con. And like I mentioned earlier, the C-Star S50 doesn't have any expandable memory. It's got the built-in 50 gigs and that's it. Okay, so that's kind of a brief overview of the features, pros and cons. Let's try and actually connect to some devices here. So let me switch the view. Hopefully you guys in Zoom can see my iPad screen now. I'm going to attempt to, let's first connect into the Dwarf. So here's the Dwarf. You can turn the ring indicator and battery indicator off on the bottom there if you want. I'm going to just click on photo. So you can see the wide field and you can see the telephoto. Let's just try and do, let me click on photo on the right-hand side of it. So I'm in photo mode. Actually, let's go to video mode.
Question, Eric?
Yep.
Can we determine the age of this object?
I have a birthday.
Yeah.
Pretty short.
So I'm going to click on auto. I'm going to do, see if it can come into autofocus here. There you go. So it has an autofocus function. You can also click the little plus and minus button to manually switch focus. There's a little control pad on the left-hand side here, and I can rotate the device left and right, up and down. I can turn the wide field view on and off. Up on the top right-hand corner, you've got some basic information, how much battery level you've got, how much space is on your memory card. You can jump out to the album, all the images that you've taken through the night. Let's click on the function button down below. You've got object tracking, because you use this during the daytime, so you can use it with scenery, and you can, put it on a person walking. You can put it on an animal and let it just track the animal. It's got some built-in AI, which is really cool. Different modes here have different features. It's like I'm in the video feature right now, but I can click on video. I can click on pano, so it has a panorama option. It's got bursting option, will take a lot of images at the same time. You can do time lapse, but mainly I'm just in the Astro mode here. So I'm gonna click on Astro. And I'll click on the function button in the bottom right-hand corner. And now you've got a set of features that you can slide this left and right. So you can take darks, you can take dark frames, you can take calibration frames, choose a star target, choose some other settings. Settings is like what your file format is going to be, if you want to include binning or not. Does anybody not know what binning is? So binning is, it will combine pixels to make them act as a single pixel. So whatever your resolution is in your sensor, basically usually it's called 1x1 or like 2x2 binning. They have a weird name, 4K and 2K. But basically what they're saying is 2K would be 2x2, and it's halving your resolution because it's using other pixels to combine them into a single pixel. The 4K would be the full resolution. And you might want to choose that to image something that's much darker so that it can have more sensitivity to apply to a particular pixel.
So in the old days with film, you have high-speed film and the granules were tiny. Really slow-speed film, you have high-speed film where the granules were much bigger, but the resolution was worse. So it's kind of like that.
Kind of like that, yeah. Let me go back. So the darks here, you can take dark frames. Dark frames are used to reduce noise from your sensor. It can eliminate noise like hot pixels that might be on your sensor. But it does something really weird. It only takes dark frames at its max 15-second shutter speed. And it will do it for different gain values. So I think it goes from like gain 30 or 50 to like gain 120, 150, something like that. And so it will do that for every gain level. And you might not really be interested in imaging at those gains. So it takes like 20 minutes to go through that process. I wish it would just give you the ability to be like, I want to image at this gain. Let me take the darks for that gain and ignore all the other gain values. I don't need the darks for those. But you can, but once it has done the whole that 20 minutes, then it has that library and you don't really need to take them again. So, but I tend to take the darks every night, just so that it's near the same temperature as my imaging session. Or maybe you want to get in the habit of taking them like every couple months or every few months. So I find that option a little bit weird. You can also take calibrations. I'm sorry, the calibration is how it's going to plate solve. It's going to do, before you are actually imaging your object, you're going to do a calibration so that it knows where it is in the sky. Actually, I kind of skipped over it in my con section. The Dwarf 2 doesn't have a full 360-degree rotation. It only has 340-degree rotation in the azimuth mode. So you will often need to come in here and calibrate it for your imaging session, depending on what object you're planning to image. I tend to set it up where it's pointed right at near the object, and then calibrate. So it'll take, I don't think I can, well, I might be able to do it. Well, it doesn't have an actual sky, so it's not going to work. It's going to take a first calibration and a second calibration and a third calibration so that it can triangulate where it is with the built-in GPS as well. So that it knows where it is, and then it can track the object that you choose. So once you've done the calibration, then you can click on that feature. Whoops. You can click on the feature for target, and then you can see here, you can choose what target you want to go to. It's got different objects, sorted by category, nebula, galaxy, cluster. They got planet system here, but as I said, it doesn't do well on planets. And you can choose by a star. You can also, up in the top right-hand corner, there's manual, and if you know what the right ascension and declination of the object is, you can type that in too, just in case it's an object that's not in the catalog. So this other option down here, this other little green slider icon, I don't know if you can see it when I put my mouse on it, down right here. This is where you can change your shutter. So if I click on that, like I said, it only goes up to 15 seconds. I'm sorry, 15 milliseconds. Go back to 1 second. That's good enough. You can change your gain level. I like to use the sweet spot of 80 gain. I haven't really adjusted the gain outside of 80. For bright objects like maybe M42, the Orion Nebula, where you might have a really bright core that you might oversaturate, then you might want to lower the gain down to like maybe 60. It also has the built-in IR option here, so you can cut it or let it pass through. I tend to find that I'm using it cut, meaning it's not going to let the IR light in. And I've been doing that because I found that it often bloats the stars if you are using the IR pass through. And you can change things like white balance, brightness, contrast. And so this is kind of the look. I don't want to spend too much time on this one. Let me hop over to the C star. If we have more time, I can come back to it. But this is the kind of the look and feel of it. You've got your wide field view, your telephoto view. You can move it left and right. You got your feature section here where you control what features you want to choose your focus, and you just, whenever you're ready to start imaging, you just click on the red record button, and it will start taking your images. I'll actually show you some images of the process in a bit. Let me hop over to connect to the C star. Let me close that up here. Let me first switch networks. There's this C star network. Oh, come on. I don't have internet. The C star S50, they tend to be updating their firmware quite regularly. I'm sorry, I didn't know it was going to do this. So let's wait for it. I don't even know how it's doing it. I'm not connected to the internet, so I don't know what it's doing. It didn't have an option to cancel either, so. I'm sorry, let's wait. Let's see, what else can I mention? Well, while I was doing that, let me talk about the concept of stacking. So stacking is, you're taking several images, in this case, they're like 10-second images, 15-second images. And the stacking process is going to combine those together and do the derotation and all that for you for however many frames you're taking. The purpose behind it is a few reasons. So there's something called signal to noise ratio. Signal is the data that you actually want in your image. Noise, obviously that makes sense. It's other things that are in your image that you don't want. Noise can come from several things, especially when you're taking images of dimly lit things, even in regular photography, not astrophotography necessarily, but because you're imaging a dark scene, then often it has grainy background. You can get noise from the heat of the sensor, the imaging sensor itself. As you increase gain, which is like increasing ISO on a regular DSLR camera, you can introduce more noise because it has to generate more heat to do that. You also have noise from light pollution. You might have vignetting in your image from your optics. You might have dust on your lens. So all these things are creating noise in your image that you don't want. And a lot of the noise is just random noise, especially from the heat aspect of your sensor. So by stacking, you're combining your images to average out the noise. If you have, let's just say you have an image that consists of a single pixel, and that pixel is white, but it's supposed to be black. If you have additional images that is combining and can average the value out, it would be like, whoa, that's supposed to be black, not white. I'm gonna make it black. So that's the idea behind stacking. Not only color, but also the sensitivity of the pixel. Maybe the pixel 9 times out of 10 has a higher sensitivity, but for whatever reason, the noise had a lower sensitivity, it would average it out. So then you also have something called dynamic range, which is basically what are the highs and lows that it can take as far as the sensitivity. If it has a narrow dynamic range and it's only able to image brighter things, then it's hard to see the dim objects that you want to take. So by stacking it, you're widening your dynamic range to pull those dim objects above its normal threshold to make them visible. Does that make sense? Okay, update succeeded. Let's do finish. So usually it often wants me to reboot. Let's see if it's not necessary. Actually, let's just do it. No, let's not. I'm sorry, it's making me get that portrait. Yeah. I am connected. Okay. Okay, so you're seeing it in the correct orientation here. So you've got several modes. Actually, let me come in and click here. I'm sorry, let me start on the top right hand corner up here. There's 2 arrows near the picture of the scope. You have the up arrow, and I can move it and start moving the altitude on the scope. Sorry for those on Zoom, you can't see the actual scope in the room, but you can move it up and down manually if you wanted to. I really like the user interface here with the sea star a little bit better than the dwarf. It seems more intuitive to me. But you've got your different imaging modes. You've got stargazing, solar, lunar, planetary, scenery. You got the album. You can look at the images that are on the device, and it's got a little quick tonight's best option. It also has down on the bottom there Sky Atlas. We can go to the Sky Atlas. So this is a feature that the Sea Star S50 has that the dwarf doesn't have. It's got, its own little like Sky Safari type planetarium software built in. So you can search for an object visually here. You can also click on objects in the upper right hand corner and choose an object that you want to image. Let me zoom back in to here. So it's got the orange frame. And there's also a blue frame. The orange frame is like choosing the target, and then there'll be a blue frame, which is actually showing you like where the scope's pointed to in relation to the target. I have another actual saved image on my computer that will show us a little bit better. Let me go back here. And it also has, let me just click on scenery so you can see kind of how the screen is set up. I'm looking at the floor. So there's this little control here, slow and fast. I can click on that. And I can manually raise it up here. Oh, let's turn that. That's that.
it's trying to find Tim. The first one.
You have one of these devices,
I have the dwarf.
the dwarf. Okay.
I actually bought my dwarf before the Sea Star came out. And in all sincerity, I bought it for portability to take it back to Buffalo for the eclipse.
Oh, okay, good.
So, and then my real thought was, once I really get to a point that I could cart my telescope around again, that as I'm using my telescope, I would use it to image, next to me as well.
Good.
So in the bottom right hand corner there, I click on autofocus and it's gonna try and focus the wall over there. Which might be difficult because it looks like it's on like a glass door, so I think it's having trouble, but it's got manual focus on the left hand side here. Let's see what we can do. Let's make it worse. Looks like that's the best I could do. I think the wall's too close. I think it has a much further distance that it needs to be able to come into focus.
Hey, Eric, I'm curious. So the image that we're seeing on the screen is landscape, but it images in portrait. Is the image area taller or than what we're seeing on screen, or is it actually narrower than what we're seeing? Do you know?
It's taller than what you're seeing.
Okay.
And there's no way to see what it's actually seeing to view that, I mean, as you're using it, or?
I don't know what you mean. You'll see the image like it appears here. So if you have the object that you're interested in, it'll be centered. But there might be a lot more sky above and below the object. Yeah, in the actual image. Okay, so let me talk about a few things here. Let's see. You don't really see it in this view. Let me get out of this. Let me get out of video. Let me click on stargazing, because that's really the interesting bit. Okay, it's kind of hard to see because of the bright image here. Let me just manually move it a bit. It's hard to see the icon on the screen. I'm just gonna cover the scope momentarily. The bright background. Okay. So on the right hand side there, you've got this filter option where you can turn on and off the internal dual band filter. You can adjust brightness, contrast, saturation as well.
So why did you cover it? So you could see the.
I covered it because the bright background was obscuring the icons here.
Oh,
You have your focus and if I wanted to hit record here and start recording, then it would do this preparing for enhancing bit where it's going to take some quick dark frames, which I'm going to just cancel. And then it would just start tracking and imaging the object for however many seconds you chose.
Eric?
You choose the seconds up here under advanced. And the advanced up here in the top there, when it has enhanced exposure, you're telling it how many seconds you want the image for. 10 seconds 20 seconds, or 30 seconds. But that's really the bulk of the display here. You just choose your object. It will slew to it. Use plate solving to know where it's at in the sky, set the object, and then you just hit record and start imaging once you're in focus. So what time is it? 7:16?
Fred, can you explain why you take dark images?
Yeah, okay. So there are things called calibration frames. Calibrations can be darks, biases, flats, and then you have lights, which is your normal frames of the object that you're imaging. Biases are used to remove the noise, the read noise of the sensor itself. And you can take them at the minimum shutter speed that the camera is capable of. You're just trying to get the noise from just it reading the data from the sensor. That's what biases are for. Darks are for eliminating things like thermal noise, hot pixels that appear from the sensor as well. Flats are used to eliminate like dust on your optics, for example, smudges, other issues that you're getting from like poor seeing in the sky and that kind of thing. Typically, you would take like 20 to 30 frames of each and subtract them. But these smart scopes are really ignoring flats and they're ignoring the bias and they're just taking darks. So even though you can take these other calibration type frames, you don't have to use them. And even though the Dwarf 2 and the C-Star S50 have like this enhancing portion, C-Star calls it enhancing, Dwarf 2 calls it darks. They're not taking that many of them. Like the Dwarf 2 only takes like maybe three darks, but that's a low number. I mean, yeah, it can work, and I guess it's better than nothing. But if you really want to get good images, then I would suggest manually taking darks yourself. Yeah, you can. Actually, I haven't yet. If I want to, I can. But you just cover the lens up,
Okay.
so there's no light entering it. Image for your normal imaging shutter speed, and take like 30 of them, and then use those to process your images later.
So when you say process, are you using them in stacking or you're using?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Can I?
Yeah.
Give you a point of reference, Casey, in a typical, the old school astrophotography where we have telescope and a digital camera. We image the object during the night, get all those images, and then like what I would do is on the way home, I'd have my camera, my telescope, everything that was set up on the tripod on the front seat of the car, but just with the lens cap on. Yeah, and I programmed the camera then to take the darks. So it's all the same temperature, the same focus, everything. Then next morning, I'd get up and I'd take the bias where it's the same telescope and camera, but I'd have a t-shirt covering the end of the lens, a white t-shirt. So now it's giving you just a white blank calibration frame. So I take several of those. So it's those different calibration frames plus the data image you collected of the object now go into your software stacking program.
So I watched a lot of stuff on YouTube and have never heard of this.
Yeah, it's quite cumbersome, and us old schoolers have done it. These smart scopes are changing
Yeah.
the way it's done.
So yeah, normally you would be stacking, you'd be using some software to it would be a manual stack when you're take the images and then put them into the program. Even though a program is doing it, it's a manual stack. These have the ability to do a live stack. So you don't have to do that. it's automatic, it's doing it itself, it's stacking it and derotating it
You see
while it's imaging. You can see it in real time. It'll make more sense here. But so I'm gonna move away from the iPad because I do want to get into also showing you the process of processing them. And then it'll make some of the other things within the app a little bit clearer. So let's first just jump to sort of the final results and show how we got there. So I'm going to come into my location here and we'll start with M51.
Do you want the lights turned off so we can see them better, the images?
If you want, you can. Okay, so this is from the dwarf. Keep in mind that this was, so all the images you're gonna see here that involve M13, which is the Hercules cluster, M27, which is the dumbbell, and M51, which is the whirlpool, were all taken from my house in Lodi, directly under like a street lamp. For only 20 minutes. I only imaged these for 20 minutes. In fact, the M27 one for the dwarf, I only did like 10 minutes because there was clouds coming in. So this is only a 20-minute stack of, so the dwarf I was taking 15 frames, I'm sorry, 15 seconds for 20 minutes. So this is what, 80 frames total. Let me go back this way. This is M27. It's a little noisy for my taste, but it's okay. It's decent. It's decent for these little tiny scopes and for 20 minutes. And here's the Hercules. Pretty good. Now let's hop over to.
Eric, go back to the whirlpool and enlarge it so we can see both the object a little bit better and the resolution that you've got. Right? If you don't mind.
So as you zoom in, so we'll still see a little bit of, see, this is what I'm talking about, noise, all this grainy aspect of it. But this is also cropped. I cropped it to the size. So it was actually a much smaller image that looks bigger now because I cropped it in, which I'll talk about in a bit. Let me go back. So that was M27 and 13. Let me go to the C star. Well, to me, that one seems like a little bit brighter. Not necessarily that it's that the dwarf is a horror device. It just might need to image a little bit longer. Maybe the sky conditions were a little bit worse that day. These were taken like a week apart. So it just depends. Again, it's only like 20 minutes of integration time.
Do you think the ocular size had a lot to play in that? Or because it is significant, the C star is significantly larger, isn't it? Or is it maybe not?
The C star is 50 millimeters. The dwarf was what I say was 25, something like that.
Yeah.
24, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I think. Yes and no. I mean, it's a small aperture, but it really has more to do with the sensor, I think, than anything.
This looks like it has more color than the other picture.
Yeah, and so when you start to get into the processing, it's a bit of an artistic approach. I can make it look however I want it to look. I can make it look brighter. I can make it look dimmer. I can increase the saturation and hue. I can make the red look green, make the blue look pink. You can do it. It's all to taste. Is post processing basically.
This looks natural color.
Yeah. And then here's the Hercules again. So I wanted to take the same objects so you can kind of compare the two
Can you
devices.
to
Can I blow this up?
make it bigger so we can see the noise? So that looks like it might have less noise, is that?
I think, overall, I think so.
And is it?
So keep in mind, this one had a smaller resolution to begin with, the C star. So I might have been able to do the bidding on the dwarf to make it the same size originally, so that it would have been better off, maybe. I might have been
And
able to do that.
also if you do more stack, do it longer.
Yeah, and if you can do more, yeah.
And Eric, I'm sorry, one quick question. Did you post-process these or are they the raw images that came off the scopes?
I did post-process.
Okay.
So that's a good question though, because the C star, I like it because it will create the stacked image, but it won't auto stretch it. I'll talk about stretching in a bit. Stretching pulls the data out of the image so you can see the object, but it will stack and it'll show you the stretched image on the iPad or on your tablet or phone, but it won't save the stretched data into the stacked image. The dwarf does that though, and that bothers me. I don't like it. I would so for the dwarf, I don't use the live stacked version. I manually stack it so that it doesn't have the stretch information in it. If that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay.
Uh, yeah,
What is it, Jeff?
5907.
yeah, right here. Hard to see.
It's a galaxy?
Oh,
Or
is it
cluster.
5905 or 5907? I can't remember which is 15 and which is that little galaxy.
Okay, so let's kind of talk about how we get to this level here. Let's start with the dwarf. And let's just choose M13.
Let me add while Eric's going there. Another way to judge the quality of an astro image is to look at the stars. If the star is a pinpoint, it's good. If it's a football shape, it's not so good. Because that indicates your tracking is blurring or something's not right.
Yeah.
Those look really good.
Yeah.
So I'm going to use a free program called Cyril. And Cyril wants the images in a certain location. It wants you to create a darks location. It wants you to create a lights location. I'm going to come in here into process. I'm going to undo what I did before. I'm going to I'm going to delete all this under process. And I don't need to worry about those. This file is the result that dwarf output. Let me just open that up. So it output this after 20 minutes. So you see there's a lot of noise here. And you can see, so you can see here, the image looks much bigger because the final result, I cropped it in. But this is auto stretched. And if I come into the stretch and try to reset it, I can't. Oh, it did. Oh. It hasn't been doing that. I'm surprised. I'm going to delete these. And we're going to go through the process again. So I've got some darks, and I got 3 darks that it took. I've got my lights in here. So this was the 20 minutes of data that it took. And I've got the I'm sorry, I lied to you. This result is not from the dwarf. The result here is from Cyril. It's going to create the result from the lights and the darks. So can I delete that? I can delete this. Can I? Wait a minute. Let me see. No. I want to keep this. Um, I'm gonna open up Cyril. Time is it? 7:30?
Is that a free software?
Yeah, it's free. Yeah. Cyril has a thing called StarNet integration, and it will take an image and it will extract the stars from the object and create two images that you can process on their own separately. And so the result there is actually the result of me having used this program to actually stack it. Let me come into so you have this home button up here. I need to set the home location to be the dwarf location here for M13. And I need to open the result that it did from a previous step where I've come up to scripts, and I've just chosen this dwarf processing script. Because I have all my lights in that folder, the script knows to look there, and it will just stack them for you. But that'll take some time, so I'm going to skip that. But you would see it information over here on the right-hand side, going through all the images, stacking them, derotating them, all that kind of good stuff. After it does that, it creates that result file. So now I'm going to come and open the result file. And it looks like this. It doesn't look like it did when I opened it before because it was auto stretching it. But I could auto stretch it here. So down here it shows linear. I'm going to choose auto stretch, and it's going to put this ugly green tint on it. It's green because it's stretching the red, green, and blue channels all together, and it's got more green. So you can remove that by clicking this little link button right here to unlink it. So this is how it looks like after it's stacked and derotated and auto stretched. Now the auto stretching doesn't save with this process. You'll have to manually stretch it. But this is just kind of give you an overview of what it's going to look like. So I'm going to actually do what's called background extraction. I'm going to come in here and choose background extraction. And these are all steps that you don't need to follow this process to the T. You can choose what you want to do and what you don't want to do. But if I actually, before I do that, before I do the background extraction, to save time, let me crop it first. Well, let's just choose about, I don't know, we'll do like 1024 by 1024 or something. Close enough. And I will manually center it. Let's say that's about the size of the image that I want to do. And then I'll crop it. I'll choose right click, I'll choose crop, and it'll make it bigger. Now that I've cropped it, you see it does look quite grainy. Now a background extraction, I'm going to do a background extraction, but really what it's for is if you have like a gradient across it. Like you might have a lot of light over here and a lot of dark over here, for example. But this one actually looks pretty good. We're not going to run it anyways. So I'm going to come up here, I'm going to do background extraction. Just let it auto generate. They say don't have these squares on bright stars. So it looks like it's done a pretty decent job. I don't really see any bright star in the middle of these squares, this auto generated grid here. Then I'm going to do compute background. So it's very subtle, but I did see that it sort of improved the background a bit, and I'm gonna apply that. I mean, it still looks grainy, but it corrected some brightness gradient across the whole background. So I'll do that.
Wasn't that grainy just because you exploded it up so large?
It's grainy because it's showing it auto stretch.
Okay.
So it's oversaturated the whole image. So I'll do that, and then I might come in here and into color calibration and do a photometric calibration. And you can do a search, like I'll do M13. And this is going to go out online, and it's going to get like color information, known color information for this object. And you can do, it's set to flip the image if needed. So when you do this, it might reorient the picture, but I'm gonna hit OK here.
It'll do the color information for the object and the stars in the field? Or just?
Yeah, yeah. Yep. So, you know, it's hard to tell if it really did anything, but I'm gonna go with it. A lot of times it's hard to tell, but I'm just gonna trust that it knows what the color is and go with it. Okay, so I do those two things. Now I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna do star processing. And this is the star net bit. I'm gonna do star net removal. I'm sorry, cancel. I'm gonna drop this back to linear first before I do it. I don't really know if that matters, but that's the way that I do it. Star processing, star net removal. I'm gonna do pre-stretch. Generate mask means it's gonna make this the starless version and the star version. And do execute. So it's running down here in the bottom right-hand corner. Okay, so it's opening up to show the version that is starless.
So that's the noise that was in the picture without the actual information.
The stars are in.
Not necessarily the noise, but it's just without the object. But yes, it has removed noise. Because the cluster is only stars, this is an easy way to do it. So I'm going to open up. So I don't need to work on this starless version because I've extracted the stars. So I'm just going to work on that version. But we'll show you working on a version of N27 in a bit where I do use this. So now it has created a starless and a star mask. So you're looking at the starless, but we don't need it. I'm going to open up the star mask. Okay, and it looks pretty dim because it's not stretched. So that's what we need to do. So I'll come into image processing. I'll come into this generalized hyperbolic stretch. You can use generalized hyperbolic stretch, but I tend to use this, what's called modified arc sin H transform. You can play around with the different ways of stretching. I tend to use this because I think it makes the stars a little bit smaller. The generalized, I think that makes them look a little bit more bloated. So that's why I do it this way. So now you just start stretching, choose a slider, and just start sliding it to the right. And you'll see where it starts to come into view. So what I tend to do is I do it in steps. I don't just stretch it once and go, okay, that looks good. I will stretch it a little bit so that I can just see it. There's a reflection on screen, so I can kind of just see it there. And I'll go, okay, I see it, I'm going to apply that. And I'll do it again. So now, I'm applying the stretch in increments. So now I'll raise it up a little bit more. And go, okay, it looks a little bit brighter. Okay, I'm going to apply that. Now let me keep doing it. And it's to taste now. It's like, how bright do I really want it to be?
But the background is much blacker.
It's much blacker because it made a starless version only. So that's why I like doing it this way. It eliminates the whole stretching of the background when you do it like this for clusters. So now it's like, how bright do I want the core to be? And how bright do the other stars look bloated? And so there are other steps that you can do, but that's the basic idea for just clusters, is to just start stretching it like this and go apply, and then go, okay, that's how I like it. You can drop this into another tool like Photoshop, GIMP, whatever, and adjust the curves, adjust the color, the saturation if you want, and go, okay, it's good.
I noticed that the original image, the cluster had a greenish change, now it has a more white.
Yeah.
So you've done color correction based on what it went out to the internet said the color was supposed to be.
Yeah. But also, you are probably also losing a little bit of color because I'm not using the other starless frame. Some of that color was in the other frame. So if I stretch the other frame, then I might see some additional color, but I think it looks fine as is. That's the way I do it.
Honestly, this object could be great and just black.
You could actually just drop this into like Photoshop or something and start adjusting tint, hue, and make it whatever color that you want it to be. Okay, so that's that one. Now let's look at M27, and I'm gonna choose, so this was from the dwarf. I'm gonna choose M27 from the C star. So I'm gonna change my home directory. And I'm going to choose the C star and 27. Okay. And I'm sorry, let me go back to let me go back to here real quick. Go into C star and 27. I don't need to worry about those. Let me get rid of. Well, so I should have gotten rid of these before the meeting. Okay, this is the stack from that came right out of the C star, this one. So I don't need that one, and I don't need that one. I'll delete those. And I don't have a result file because I'm not going to manually stack it in Serial. I stacked it first using that processing script, and it made the result. But I'm not going to stack it. I like the live stack that C-Star already did.
Because it doesn't do the strip.
Because it doesn't do the strip yet. So I'm going to work right off of this one that came, no, sorry, not that one, this one that came from the C-Star. I'm going to open it up here. So you can see it doesn't look very bright because it hasn't stretched it. And you can see this one does definitely have a gradient. You can see dark to white.
Right.
And in fact, I could come in here and I could like auto stretch this one and play around with the sliders here and make it look different in this application. I don't really use this application a lot. I'm just opening it up so you can see what it looks like. So let's go to Serial. And open up this one. Right, that's the 120. 10 seconds. That's the fit image. Yeah, that's the right one. Okay, so you see, so you can see there. Okay, you can see there the portrait orientation of the image. I'm gonna auto stretch it down here. So that I can see what it looks like. So I'm going to crop it. So I'm gonna, that's right.
So that photo noise, is that weather noise?
The white?
Yeah.
It's probably because I'm under a street
Yeah,
lamp.
street lamp. That's low dynamics.
I'm gonna go to selection. I'm gonna do 1-to-1 to make this easier. And I'm going to do that. Center it up on M27. Right click, and I'm gonna do a crop. Okay, so it looks a little bit grainier. But already it's looking pretty good in the auto stretch. So the reason why you do the auto stretch is so that you can tell where the object is in relation to the stars, so that when you come in to do the background extraction and generate the little grid squares, like you can see here, place the square on this one. I'm going to remove that one. It recommends don't have them on bright stars. Maybe that one. And it thinks this is part of the object because it's so bright. So I didn't put it there. But I want to manually drop squares in here now and go, no, that's background. That's not the object. So I might manually place some more in here so that it does a better job of removing this ugly gradient across. You don't need to go overboard here. Let's just call that good. And go, okay, compute background. So it looks grainy because again, it's auto stretching it, but it has removed that weird light to dark gradient from the background. So that's what you want. So I'm going to apply that.
Yeah, so technically it's brighter than the so as it goes across M27, that gradient still continues. So that will repair the gradient because like M27 is too bright in one part of it because of that, right?
Yeah, so it's gonna go, okay. I now know what you think the background should be, and I'm gonna apply that across the whole thing and remove that gradient that was across the M27 object. Yeah. Okay,
So
so
is this common with other software? Is this unique to this stuff?
that's common with almost all of them. So Affinity Photo, PixInsight, they all do the same thing, or a version of it. So I'm gonna drop this back down to linear now. And we're going to do the star net. I'm gonna come into star net. I'm sorry, you could come in here and do color calibration. I could do the photometric calibration again.
That's where it's checking the energy.
Yeah, it's gonna check this out. I'm gonna do a find. It shows in 27 there. It'll flip it if it needs to. Do okay. Yeah. Okay, close. Actually, I probably should have left it stretched so you could have seen it. That's the new color. I mean, I find it very difficult to see what it does color versus not color. I'm just going to trust that it knows what the color is. So now I'm going to do the star net. Processing. Star net removal. I'm sorry. I'm going to drop this back to linear. Like I said, it might not matter, but this is the way that I learned it. So I'm going to follow the steps that I normally do. I go to linear, go to star processing, star net removal. I'm going to do pre-stretch, generate the mask, and execute. There's all kinds of other settings that you can try. You could like do upscaling. You can do denoising, deconvolution. There's other steps that you can do in between, but this is the basic process. Is once you got the background extracted, go into StarNet, separate the stars from the object, manually do your stretch for each one independently. And then on this one, like the last one we just worked on the one with one of the stars. On this one, I'm going to work on both. And then I'm going to integrate them both back into a single image after the fact. So you can see here the auto stretch, that looks pretty good without any stars.
Get rid of the spark and also get rid of the essential stuff.
Yep. Okay, so So I'm going to, I wish it would let you actually save this, because I like the way that it auto stretched it,
Yeah,
but it won't, it doesn't work that way. Actually, I think there is a way, but I have to learn how to do it. There's some like, over here in the command line, there might be a command to prevent it from removing the auto stretch. But as soon as you come up here to do a generalized hyperbolic stretch, it disappears. So that you can do it manually. So I'm sorry, but come over here real quick. So it created these two files. The one with the star mask has the stars. It created the starless one, and now I'm working on the starless one. And again, same thing. I'm just come here and just start stretching it up a little bit.
you see something?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm gonna reset. I'm on the wrong one. This is modified arc side. I'm gonna go to generalized hyperbolic. That was saving the setting from the last one. It is hard to tell. I can see it a little bit coming into view. There's reflection on the screen, but I can just barely see it right now. So I'm gonna apply that. Do it again. Okay, and now you can do, now if you wanted to, you can do things like create a symmetry point. I can like I can like make a little box in here if I wanted to. And I could hit this little symmetry point here. And I can start changing. I can choose this local stretch to increase more of just the object than the background. So I can brighten that up. I can increase the stretch again a little bit up here if I wanted to. And again, it's all to taste. How bright do you want it to look? I can apply that. Maybe one more little stretch. Okay, I like it. That's fine. You can play around with this all day long. Look at how you want it. But for the sake of the demonstration, that's the basic idea is you come here, you stretch it, pull that out. I'm gonna apply that. And close. Okay, now it hasn't been saving this, so I'm gonna save what I've been doing to this starless image. And now I'm gonna open up the one with the stars. What time is it? Almost 8, okay. And do the same thing I did before on the other object. So I'm gonna come into the histogram, I'm sorry, the generalized hyperbolic. I'm gonna switch over to modified arc sign. Start stretching it.
When you showed us that part where it was M27, the rest of the field is just black. Is that a actual black or there's zero energy on the pixels, or is there some level?
It should be 0. It's an artificial black background.
Okay.
Yep. It remove the bright stars, put it on a simulated black background.
So the rest is as black.
I'm sorry. For the other one that we're just working on, the one with N27.
Well, M27 had no stars.
No, I'm sorry. This one that we're gonna is the one with the simulated black background. The one that had the M27 object in it, that still had data in the background.
Is there a way to do it so there's absolutely zero?
Not really.
Black?
Not really. The only way I know to do that is how this tool is doing it for the stars, but it can't detect. I don't know of anything that can detect like that. You just like manually cut it out and put a false black background and then impose it again, like in Photoshop or something. But no. So again, you just keep stretching this up to it's about the brightness that you want. Let's just call this one here good. hit apply. Close, again, save this version. And then you would come in back into StarNet. Star recomposition. And now I would choose the individual images. I would choose the star list, for example. And the star mask. And it reintegrates the two together, close, and then save this out. And if you wanted to do some further processing in like Photoshop or something to just make it a little bit brighter, adjust the contrast, maybe lower the black point down a little bit in the background, you could do that. But that's the basic process. So let me just spend a little bit extra time here. It's not quite 8 yet.
This is really cool, Eric.
Yeah. Let me just hop over real quick to show you a little bit more back in images that I took from the apps. So if I come into Dwarf, I'm sorry, not that one. Let me come into iPad. Let me come into Dwarf. Let's go to M13, for example, and just start here. So this is what it looked like in the app as I was actually doing the imaging. So this is showing here that I'm at, it's M13, shutter speed of 15 seconds, gain of 80. This is only one stacked image, and I can already see that right there. As I scroll through it, it's getting a little bit brighter. This is a stack of 20 images so far, and it's live stack. Now it's at 40. Until I got to 80 and called it quits for 20 minutes. You could actually like come in here and choose the curves function within the Astro bit. And you can apply a curve to it in here if you want. Doing that kind of lowered the background and make it a little bit black. But I don't think that this doesn't save it in the final image, though. I think this is more of how it looks on screen. And then you could hit save here and save this out as its own image. But this curve here, to my knowledge, doesn't affect the images while it's doing the stacking. Because actually I did this after the stacking had already stacked. And then that was basically how it looked when it came out of when I saved that out. And so here, over here, you can kind of see some color banding right along the edge here. This is the effect from field rotation. There's some color pixels along this edge here. It'll be easier to see further on. And this was it again, the final image cropped in and processed. Let's hop over here to M27, similar deal. That's what it looked like with one stack. Looks horrible, but it gets brighter as you go. 20 stacked, 42 stacked, 80 stacked. You can see that there's a light gradient across the background. I dimmed it by doing an in-app curve. And that was the output from it. That's what made this, though. This next one. Actually, that was a first attempt. I actually did another imaging session after that and did it again. And then that's the one that made that. I did it again because I thought there's like a cloud or some lighting effect that I was trying to avoid. Here's M51. So it kind of looks horrible because it's just one stack. But as you go through it, that's what it looks like. So you get that. So you can really see the field rotation artifact here on this, up here in the corner, along the edge. Now, that said, I'm sorry, I closed that out. Now, even though it has field rotation problems, both of these scopes, you can use them in an equatorial fashion. They're not designed to do it that way, but people have done it and it does work. You can do that to avoid the field rotation problem. They're polar aligning them just roughly. They're like putting like a little straw or something along the side to sight in Polaris and then just call that good. And they're not doing a very precise polar alignment.
Well, your explosives are pretty short on them.
Yeah, yeah. Let me come back to iPad. So here's the C star. I was kind of doing this one differently. I did this one first. So this is me. So I had selected M13 as my object. It's doing the go-to, it slewed to it, centered it up pretty nicely. This is 20% through the imaging enhancing portion where it's doing the darks. And then it's just going through, I'm sorry, let me go back. So this one does it differently. So this was like the first frame, but I didn't do like, I didn't do it by a frame count. I just did like the first few seconds. So this is up here showing after 20 seconds. This is what it looked like. Then after 30 seconds. That's after 5 minutes. And then this is, C-Star like automatically saves the image out to your tablet or phone. And this is what it looked like. So I think the reason why it's set up in this portrait mode like this is because they're trying to be in this current TikTok generation where they're expecting you to just immediately post it up to Facebook or something. So they're making it in this format so that it looks nice when you're holding your phone in that orientation. I think that's the purpose behind it. I don't like it, but then I ended up cropping it down and making it like that. That's the final result.
So that, there's a 50 millimeter scope.
50 millimeter for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, not bad. Just a couple more. Here's M27. Starting out. Again, 30 seconds, a minute. The final output that it made. And then I ended up doing it again because I didn't like the lighting conditions. It was a little bit better and it made the final output that we looked at the start. After processing through serial, that final one. And then one more and we'll call it good. M51. Started out, got a little bit brighter, 30 seconds. That was after a minute. I ended up doing it again, but this is showing the screenshot of the target versus the scope on 51 when it slewed to it. Then I did a dark again. I'm taking the darks again, and then I did it one more. I did the session one more time. I don't remember why I stopped it after a minute, but I went through it again and then did a full 20 minutes. And I'll put that again here. You can see the field rotation artifacts along the edge. Yeah, and I crop it out. Yeah, and got that. So not bad for only 20 minutes in a light polluted city under a street lamp. Under that one was like under 80% illuminated moon. For something highly portable that you can easily take out to any site. And yeah, that's about it, guys.
Very good. Thank you, Eric. Anybody have any questions for Eric? Or
The other thing I like about the visual photography is it doesn't suffer from film reciprocity failure, which was a big mover when you shoot film.
Yeah.
film reciprocity failure?
Yeah, if you shoot 3 times the exposure, it's 3 times brighter. So if you double the ASA, you cut your exposure in half. So all this reciprocity stuff works up to about, depending on what kind of film, work up about 8 or 10 seconds. Then the reciprocity rules turns off, and the film becomes less sensitive. So If you shot 10 times longer, you don't get 10 times the light, you only get 1.5 times that. And so with this stuff, when you do 10 times longer, you get 10 times the light. Yeah.
So when we're done here, I mean, if you wanna see, I got filters and accessories that go with that, you wanna see those?
Any questions for Eric? Eric, excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, we just have a few announcements. So not this Saturday, but next Saturday. We'll look forward to seeing everyone out at Oak Grove Park for Astronomy Day. It starts off about 2 o'clock in the Nature Center with all kinds of activities for the family and the kids. Our potluck for the membership, get there sometime between 4 and 5, I think it says here. Yeah. Between 4 and 5 with your potluck meal or whatever you're gonna share. We're gonna plan to eat right about 5 o'clock. The club will have drinks, utensils, tablecloths. What else do we have out there? Jerry, that's about it.
We're gonna have a cake. We talked about that at the EC meeting.
We did. We
Okay.
did. We wanna get a cake.
Okay.
So yeah, just a casual, a potluck. With the, it's kind of a social gathering. Jerry, are we gonna have a Striking Sparks presentation?
Of course we are.
Yeah.
We have a Striking Sparks awardee this year. He's a second grader, but he did an awesome science presentation on exoplanets at the San Joaquin County, one of their events, and he actually won his division. At first, you know, his mom seemed to be maybe overly involved, you know, and so even his teacher mentioned in the essay that some of his works, she kind of suspected that there was a lot of parental involvement, but then she found out later when talking to his name is Agamir, talking to him that, yeah, he knows his stuff. He did this work. And so he's a pretty remarkable young man. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we're gonna give away a telescope, but isn't that great? It's been a couple of years, I think, since we've done that, so.
That's cool.
And the membership.
He goes to, the Rural Island
Oh.
Tech Academy.
Oh,
Oh, that's good.
Okay.
Great for me.
Yeah, so that's Saturday, the 18th. Hopefully everyone can come out. Should be nice weather. And then we transition into astronomy in the park. We have our telescopes. I think we're gonna have a astronomy 101 class on the monitor. So yeah, come on out for that. Next slide, Eric. And then here's our calendar of upcoming events for June. We've got finally some star parties we're going to get to. Hopefully we've got good weather. We might even get on June 8th into Peddler Hill. Maybe, yeah. Have some high altitude viewing. The 13th is we're back here for our general meeting. Doug is going to do a presentation on the Artemis mission. Looking forward to that. And also, we want to ask you folks if you have any stories or pictures of the recent solar eclipse, bring them on out. We'll show them on the screen here. We'll get a chance to do a little show and tell. Jeff and Doug already put their articles in the newsletter. You probably saw those, but anybody else has those, something to share? Want to give you an opportunity to do that. Astronomy in the park on the 15th, and then another Highway 4 star party. So before we move the slide, raise your hand if you know what this object is. Jeff knows. Does anybody else recognize it? I'm gonna start giving you hints.
I think is it a moon?
Jupiter.
Raise your hand if you know what it is, okay? It's in the solar system. It's not a planet,
Is it Io?
it's Io. Very good.
I don't do that.
You, And does anybody know why it has all those features going on? Jeff knows.
Because Eric photoshopped it.
So help me out here, Jeff. Io is the object in the solar system with the most volcanic activity. So there's hot magma boiling to the surface, there's lava flows, it's very active. Not a very hospitable place, but very active. It's got all this gravitational pull between the two other moons and Jupiter. So it's got all this
Called the tidal forces.
Big tidal stretches
Yeah.
in Jupiter.
Tidal forces are causing plate tectonic action.
Now, through a telescope, I know it's super small, but has anybody ever seen any features or just a white disk? You can't see anything, huh?
I can't, but something like the 40-inch Dixie probably could see some, but I haven't seen it.
Okay, next slide. You're gonna laugh at me. This is a repeat. I had the slide from last month because we wanted to thank Bill for getting us this donation from PG&E. And he missed last month's meeting. So I wanted to rerun the slide to tell Bill, thank you again. And he's gone now. So you all were here, we thanked him twice,
Are
right?
we gonna see it in June?
Yeah.
He's a slacker.
Yeah, so anyway. Okay, and then you saw the article in the newsletter that Doug's posted. We want to get pre-orders going for these T-shirts for the 75th anniversary. So look at the Doug has all the information in the newsletter. We're gonna need to vote to spend the money to purchase the T-shirts up front. So we want to get some idea who wants how many T-shirts. So look at that, respond to us. I think they're great looking T-shirts. I'm looking forward to getting one or two myself. So, and then the last slide in the newsletter, like I mentioned, Jeff submitted a great article on he and Glenda's trip to go see the eclipse in Texas. Doug also submitted a really nice write-up. Did you guys read it?
Yes.
You read it? Okay. Of his trip, he and Maggie went to Missouri. So while they were there in Missouri, they met this gentleman in the lower right-hand corner. Previn Brahe. So as Doug gets to talking to him, and he learns that this gentleman's last name is Brahe, and he's from Copenhagen.
Wow.
They figure out that, and they get him to admit, he is the great ninth generation nephew of Tycho Brahe. So who is Tycho Brahe? Well, those of us that have studied astronomy and the history and love this kind of stuff, it's kind of a household name. But I wanted to share with you what I read and learned about Tycho Brahe. So let me read this to you. Tycho Brahe lived 1546 to 1601, a Danish nobleman and gentleman scientist, made the most precise astronomical and planetary observations to date by designing and building the best, most sophisticated scientific instruments available until the invention of the earliest known telescope in 1608. So that device on the left is not a telescope, it's basically a sextant that he measured planetary motion, comets, that sort of thing, before telescopes were even invented. His discoveries in astronomy were made from Ureborg, an observatory on the state of the island of Heden in the sound between Denmark and Sweden, which King Frederick II of Denmark had granted him with funding as well as for construction of the observatory and its instruments. Yeah. The guy was a nobleman. He was, the royalty of the time. his observations of planetary motion, particularly that of Mars, provided the crucial data for later astronomers like Johannes Kepler, who should be a familiar name to you all. Johannes Kepler, who was Brahe's assistant to construct our present model of the solar system. So it was really serendipitous that Doug met his great nephew in Missouri while viewing the eclipse. So I thought that was really kind of cool that we made that connection.
Yeah.
Add something here to Tycho. He was actually trying to disprove the Copernican theory by looking at Mars and trying to prove that it really was going around the Earth. His data showed otherwise, and when he was killed, well, he died at a young age because he was a real jerk. And yeah. But Kepler actually stole the data. Kepler, he wasn't given to him in any form. They oftentimes don't mention it. He stole it and split the country. And then he later analyzed the data because he knew that there was interesting stuff there.
Okay, so let me unravel that just a moment. So Brahe did all these readings and so forth, but he still believed in a geocentric solar system.
His goal was to prove the geocentric model.
Okay. Kepler took the data, but he still believed it was geocentric, or did he now convert to
He saw
heliocentric?
that orbits are elliptical. Copernicus's problem was he put the sun at the center, but he believed that everything was still moved in circles because that was hard to get away from. Mars, the orbit of Mars data from this device is huge, by the way. This does not give the idea of just how large it was. It was huge, but Kepler realized that the data shows that the planet is an ellipse, or the orbit's an ellipse, and therefore the only possible explanation is that the sun is the center, except one of the foci of the ellipse, and from that, there's 3 laws of planetary motion,
Which we still use today.
oh, of course.
Yeah. So anyway, a little bit of trivia from the solar eclipse. So I think that wraps it up for the meeting. Anybody else have anything you want to bring up?
I have some questions about you had mentioned a couple meetings ago about doing some field trips or camping trips at maybe observatories or something. And you mentioned the July, something at Lassen.
Yeah, so I didn't have a slide on this, but I believe the date is July 27th. There's a star party at Lassen National Park that we're invited to participate in. And if we come up and we bring our telescopes jointly with the Sacramento Club, we get free admission to the park and lodging. Campsites, I'm not exactly sure.
Right.
So if that's something you're interested in, contact me and we'll get the details worked out. Yeah. Anybody else?
Just real quick, me and Tim are toying around with the idea of setting up the sea star at Oak Grove
Oh, yeah.
and displaying like a live image of the moon on a display there. And then also I'll have a couple of images and video from the dwarf tube from the eclipse.
Nice.
So
Cool.
at the June meeting.
Very good. Well, Jeff, thank you for the goodies. Thank you for the birthday cake.
Happy birthday.
Appreciate it very much. And Eric, thank you for a great presentation, for setting it all up tonight. So
You're welcome.
with that, I'll adjourn the meeting. See you all soon.